Andrea Sweeney Blanco. She goes by the name Andi, and I'm going to read her bio. And if I look down a little bit, because I was trying to memorize all this, but I didn't quite get it all down, and I want to do it right. So she is an actress, a producer, a director, and a TV personality. Andi is currently a host of global TV docuseries The Fixers. And Andi travels the world connecting with communities in need and build projects that empower them and dream big for their future. Working entertainment since the age of 6. My goodness. Andi is known as an actress in TV, film, and theater, with known credits such as Without a Trace, The Middle, Santa Claus 3. Okay. Santa Claus 3. Now, I don't speak Spanish fluently, but Vencer el Desamor, and if I'm not correct, please, she'll correct me. And La Mexicana y el Guerrero. Okay. Originally from Monterrey, Mexico, she is Mexican-American and splits her time between the countries within the entertainment industry. She has also worked on national commercial campaigns and international films, Germany, UK, the US. She hosted a popular radio segment in New England on 88.9 FM for Broadway and film music for several years, and did a musical theater BFA track at Emerson College while studying comparative religions. At the Harvard Extension Program, she directed a couple of plays in North Hollywood and LA, and became theater director at a private high school in California in her early 20s, so accomplishing a lot. She continues to work with high school students in partnership with a nonprofit that helps at-risk youth graduate high school and seek higher education. And she believes all creative endeavors require proactive activity. Now, she is going to share with us many things. She is going to share about developing personal systems to achieve freedom in creative and relational endeavors. And one of the things that you may not know, that now that you know many things about her, is that she is a huge fan of magic. Ooh, she's not only creating magic with what she does, but she's a huge fan of magic, and one day hopes to be good enough to perform it. So please make sure you send us that invitation to the event. We will all come and martini with you. She loves one of our favorite, and that is Joni Mitchell. And she has an incredible gift that she is offering to spend some time with her. And we will talk about that at the end. So, Andi, please welcome to the stage.
Oh my goodness. What an introduction. Thank you very much. I sent that all as options to say. I didn't realize we were going to express all of it.
So. No. I think it's great to have that. Well, first of all, congratulations, but to have that really depth sense of knowing you. And now I know that you and Dorothea have something that you've worked out now. Is that something that we're going to show now, or we're going to chat a little bit first?
Let's chat a little bit first, and then I can intro the show just so you get an idea of what it is. As you said, I currently host a docuseries called The Fixers. Out of the many things in the show, I'm a builder as well. Carpentry was always just a hobby. I never thought I'd do it for work. So I'm a carpenter on the show. I'm a host of the show. And yeah, I get to travel the world and connecting with communities, seeing what their dreams are, and realizing a build project that will get them closer to that. Needless to say, they have been my teachers, and they helped me far more than I could possibly help them. So I'm excited to introduce the show in a moment. But I just want to say, listening to the speakers earlier today, I mean, what a beautiful event this is. What a beautiful summit, just to come together with the incentive to realize our truest selves, to connect to that essence of who we are, and do it in unity, do it in community. And I'm a huge admirer of what I've heard so far. I loved what Rhonda Grant said about synchronicity and magical moments in everyday life that are there if you're present and ready to receive them, and if you're where you're supposed to be. She said it so beautifully, and I'm a huge believer of that. I believe that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, and sometimes we forget that. Sometimes the world distracts us a little bit, and we're just tangibly in it, and we think, but if we're spiritual beings having a physical experience, that means we're not just having spiritual experiences. The spirit is real, right? And it goes before us, before anything our intellect or our physical body can experience. Our intuition, our spirit goes before us. It's much bigger than we are. And when we resonate with that, when we connect with that higher self, God, if you will, I use the term God, then we are really living in that synchronicity of where we're meant to be, and we're co-creating a reality that is not only healthy, but it's beautifully impactful to everybody else. When we are most connected to our truest selves, we connect to everybody else. So I also wanted to call Sharon Medford out, and you said, no is a full sentence. I mean, that's so beautiful and true, because creating boundaries builds self-respect. And I think I'm going to talk a little bit about that too, is showing up for the self, right? I mean, and everything you said, ladies, was beautiful as well. I just, these were the moments that clicked for me, that I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to tap into it a little bit, but because you've already delved into that so wonderfully, I don't have to expand upon it, because it's been shared. And Carmel, how can I be of service to others? I mean, what can I say? That's everything, I think, in life. Like, why we're here is to be connected to each other. Man was not made to live alone or to be alone, right? We learn something, and I think our immediate human instinct is to share it with others, right? And that giving spirit is so beautiful and wonderful. And yeah, and Precious, thank you for saying that we're all connected, because it's so true. We are all the same and yet uniquely made. And when we tap into that essence of what moves us, what motivates us, what brings us to where we need to be, then I think that it really makes it so that we are in a state of, sorry, I thought there was something outside. So that we're in a state to be fully present and to be with others and to be totally connected. So anyway, without further ado, I just wanted to say thank you for that. I feel really inspired. I feel really moved by that. And yeah, I have a little intro to the show. Dorothy, if you could play that for us, please. Let me see. Here, okay. Dorothea. Thank you. I'll mute myself so it can be heard.
4 expert builders have been given 10 weeks to travel the world and change the lives of 10 communities in need. With no time to plan, this resourceful team will need to bring the community together to do the impossible. Their mission, to forge a better future, one project at a time.
Okay, so that's the TV show. If you wanted to check it out, it's on Discovery International. It's also, you can watch it for free. There's a family-friendly streaming service called BYU, and it's byutv.org/thefixers. You can watch it with the whole family. It's family-friendly, and each episode is a different country. And we not only do the build project there and you see the renovation and the build happening, but you learn about the culture, about what people's everyday lifestyles are like there. And I get the privilege of being there and just kind of absorbing all of it and then reflecting upon it occasionally with my co-hosts, who are amazing. And so, yeah, bringing out, well, as I was mentioning with Precious, you said we're all similar, but focusing on our unique gifts makes us so that we're having a cohesive, wonderful experience in this world. Because when people focus on their gifts, I think that is the strength that brings teams together, and you can actually build something great. So my coworker, Courtney, he's from Australia. He's an inventor. He can make anything out of scraps of metal, out of anything that we have around. If our materials that we ordered don't show up, if anything goes wrong, he can just turn something around and recycle it. My coworker, Kieran, he's a general contractor, and he's very gifted at not ever freaking out about anything. If something happens, he stays right on cue and he leads the pack. And I'm not an amazing painter, so my coworker Nick, he's the artist in the group, the visual artist, and he brings that whole vision together. And my area of expertise is cultural, linguistic understanding, and being a bridge of understanding between the communities, as well as some of the building and carpentry and welding. So coming together as a team, our each unique elements make this possible. So I just want to say that because it's important to me to acknowledge that we can't ever really accomplish anything alone, right? That is of significance. I think there's always someone that's spoken to our lives, that filled our cup, that motivated our journey. There's always something outside externally that created a vision or created an idea to be formed, and we drew upon that. And just living is a collaborative experience. And that's something I'm going to also dive into in my presentation, which is I do believe that manifestation is a word that takes a little bit of credit for things as opposed to co-creation. Like, I use the word co-creation because I believe that I'm being led and I'm being I'm in collaboration with God and with that universal force that is driving things forward, that is inspiring me, that is moving me in a direction that is positive and healthy for me, as well as being a creative myself. There's a quote, I'm Christian, so I believe we're made in the image of the Creator. And what I think that means is that we are made in the image of the creative force that created everything, the creator of the universe. And thus we are creative by nature. We are creative. And therefore, when we tap into that, into our creativity, when we trust ourselves, when we take action upon it, we are living in our highest selves. So that's all to say. I am going to share screen, and go right into the presentation. Also, thank you for being here. Okay, share. Awesome. Okay, I think this is working. Play on this Mac. Ha, can everyone see that? Is this working okay? Is it cut off?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. So I'll be talking about, yes, systems, developing systems for yourself that you can draw upon to be present in everyday life, to be at your utmost creative essence and fullness, for your soul, for your body. And I'm going to do it through the improvisation of everyday life. I'm going to show a little bit how improvising and getting comfortable with showing up in a moment that maybe we haven't been in before, and just yes-anding, which is the number one rule in improvisation. If you've ever taken theater, and my theater people here are going, yes, and I get it. I remember. So, and how this leads to the path to the fullness of self. So I'll cover a little bit about the Stoics and what their belief is, since I believe the major theme of today is loving one's life. So I really wanted to lean into that, loving one's life, showing up, and self-care, right? So the Stoics and intentionality, what they philosophically drew upon in that sense, developing personal systems, and then techniques for being fully present, acceptance, release of control, how that takes faith. It seems to be the recipe for greater outcomes in the future, and taking a leap of faith. We hear that all the time, but what does that truly mean? I mentioned a little bit about manifestation versus co-creation, and that's just my own linguistic being picky, but if you use one or the other, you know, that what works for you is lovely. But yeah, vision, what does that mean? Dreaming going hand in hand with discovery. Are we spectators as much as we are participants in our own journey? And just a little theory on that. Intentions having energy even before we take action, watching what we think, watching how that affects our mind, our body, and spirit before we even do anything about it. Yeah, and the process of attracting what you want being a lot like falling in love. So and those are stills from my film work before. I wasn't sure what to use for creative things, so I'm like, I'll use something that I own. So okay. Oh. Hello. Okay.
Hello.
It's not going on to the next slide. Let me see. Oh, okay. I can do it manually. Good. We figured it out. Okay. So the Stoics have this terminology that I love, and I'm just going to tap very briefly into it, which is amor fati. And if you are familiar with Stoicism or not, I'll give a little brief background. So the Stoics, being ancient Greece and Rome, originating in like 300 BC, they believe the practice of virtue is enough to achieve a well-lived life. And they have just copious amounts of philosophical writings that display a really amazing way to approach these virtues in everyday life. Like, what are the steps that you can take logically? I'm starting with logic first before going into emotion and spirit. But so yeah, it's Hellenistic philosophy from ancient Greece. To live a good life, one must understand the rules of the natural order. So they really believed that nature gave us information and we had to be in conjunction with it because we are a part of nature. So there's a lot of wisdom in these writings. And I just really recommend, if you look up Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus, their writing is just really something that can help the mind stay on track, and is really good for the actual practice of it, because they don't just focus on the theory. It's not just, oh, here's another philosophical conundrum or understanding or theory. It is, here are practical steps that in everyday life you must take in order for this to be, in order to say you live a virtuous life, right? And I love that, because a motto I very much live by is actions, not words, which sounds counterintuitive, which is why I like it. But it's true. Until we take action and do something, we can't claim to be an expert in anything. Until we take action and do something, we can't build habits, right? And habits eventually, as we add time on, become us, right? So amor fati is the lingo I wanted to present today, because today is so much about loving your life, right? And it's a Latin phrase meaning the love of fate, but it's more than just, what is love? They try to define it, and they say it's a practice and an attitude of seeing everything that happens, including the most devastating, including the bad, as something good, or at least necessary. And it's something that you train your brain to do, and it's an instinct after a while. And when you do practice it, of course, things become instinctual, things become a practice. And so one very, very small example of this that's very recent is I was driving with a friend recently that got into a car accident. And she was driving extremely carefully, going a little slower than even I was comfortable with. But I knew the context, I knew the circumstances, and we're getting honked at. There's cars going around us, and she's not driving unsafely either, but she was very cautious. And I just got to notice from within the car, having the information, having the context, just the reactions, the immediate reactions of people going straight to frustration or going straight to anger in many ways. And it convicted me a little bit, because I live in Los Angeles. Nobody likes the traffic here. Or everybody at least is understanding that if you need to get to the West Side at 4 p.m., it's going to take you 3 hours when it normally takes you 30 minutes. I have been guilty of with slow drivers, or at least passive drivers that are not actively present with the road or on their phones or something, getting a little bit worked up. Now, I don't do anything about it usually, but I feel it and it affects me. And so, but it got me thinking, because I thought, what if in everyday life, like I see a slow driver go, I make some excuse up. That's my go-to from the very, very beginning. Oh, they probably just got in an accident and are just being super careful. Or, they just got broken up with and are so distraught and emotionally. And that connects me to my empathy. That connects me to my sense of connectedness to other people, and practicing it in absolutely everything. Whenever there's something that happens that kind of leads to an initial judgment, just going to the best case scenario first is not always something that's instinctual, because our survival instincts and bad experiences from the past lead us to be protective, right? And build certain walls or build certain paradigms that can sometimes lead us to negative thinking in order to survive the situation, which is appropriate in some cases, but not all. So that's being discerning of when it's an intuition, and being discerning when, I just want to be empathetic in this case. And it's for us. At the end of the day, the anger of strangers shouldn't matter to us, and vice versa. And so really, when we allow ourselves to get angry, when we lose track of that sense of connectedness and empathy, that's affecting our hearts and ourselves. And so that practice of loving everything that's happening. Okay, I'm late. And of course, every time that I'm late, the slowest driver is right in front of me, and they're just not moving, and there's no other lanes. And just in that moment, taking a breath and breathing. And I know there were some exercises earlier doing with breathing as well. Breathing is really so powerful. And there's something called box breathing, which I'm sure most of you have heard, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and breathe out for 4 seconds. You do that 10 times, and scientifically, really, it just reduces your heart rate. It reduces your sense of stress, just physically, right? Another thing that can be done is to hold, how you sit when you're being passive, such as driving. We might be in our thoughts, and we might be slouching or caving in. And when we're not paying attention, sometimes our body language does inform how we feel. And just changing that. There's a wonderful TED Talk. It'll come to me, but she's known for, like, if you just look up body language TED Talk or power posing, this is the woman that comes up. She is incredible. And she discovered this about body language, that when we take on a smile, even if we're not feeling great, or when we take on like puff our chest out, even if we're feeling sad or something, there is something physiological that then affects the emotions as a result. So those two things in congruency can help one get into this habit of going to best case scenario in my experience, and also my theory. An observation. And another one that is actually, I added it in here. I was just going to talk about more Fati, but Memento Mori, so a couple of days ago, my childhood dog of many years passed away. And it was devastating. I mean, she was such light. She was such joy in our lives. She was so intuitive, and she always took care of everybody. If you were emotional, she knew it right away and came to protect you. Like, she was so smart, and such a blessing. And we had her for over 10 years. And she was a rescue. So she was not supposed to live very long at all. She had a skin condition from a lot of abuse that she lived through. And then I wish I'd put a picture of her on here, actually, just before and after, but just her curls came out. She was a Maltese poodle, so just puffy white dog, but she just had a presence. Like, she was just so grateful to be alive all of the time. And so she lived well and a great life. And but it got me thinking, when this happens and you're in the grieving process, it can lead to a lot of different emotions. It's not just sadness, but anger. Like, why does this have to happen? And you're reflecting on all of this. But the Stoics have the Memento Mori, reflecting on our mortality every single day. Not only brings us to the present moment to say, wow, life is really fleeting and really precious. And I've just gotten into this groove where I've kind of forgotten that I'm living every day and routinely, or I'm living in the same sequence of thoughts and not branching out in friend groups, or not branching out in new ways of seeing the world, and therefore not fully appreciating the time that we have until we get diagnosed with something, until something happens that's a little bit askew or traumatic in some sense. That's when we come back to it. But what if we had a practice of and it sounds a little bit negative, but I don't think it is, because if you reflect that upon death, and death being a reality, then you're actually acknowledging how our appreciation for life as well, right? There's a balance, one or the other. And so not or the other, one and with the other. And so that practice of every day saying, wow, I could go outside that door today and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I have 50, 100 more years, or till tomorrow because of some accident somewhere, and that's not negative in a sense. It's just realistically saying this moment is all that exists. The past is there. There's nothing that can be done about it. So I can draw from it. I can learn from it. And the past and the future is an idea. Always, it's always just the present moment. And so to experience God, to experience the highest self, to experience our greatest sense of creativity, we have to be fully present. And also to connect with other people, right? Because that's when we're fully listening, when we're acknowledging things, when we're connecting the dots between something we've learned with others before and what we're seeing right before us and the person that we're talking to. So I think that it's a wonderful just little system too, to have just a more fati reflecting on that momentum. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I'm going to cover it again. We're made in the image of the creator. Then by our very nature, we are creative. And when we express that, we become the fullest versions of ourselves and tap into deeper love. Because when we're our truest selves, I do believe that we become love. It's not about necessarily self-love. I believe going further than that and saying like, you are love. Like God is love. In essence, and what is love really, reflecting on what does love truly mean, right? They say when you love another, truly love them, you start to care more about what's best for them and what's right for them rather than what you need from them, right? There's a selfless element, there's a sacrificial element to love that's not necessarily in our instinct as human beings. Our instinct is not to sacrifice ourselves, it's to survive. But there's something in us, spirit, that shows us a bigger way, a deeper way. And I believe that's wisdom. That's God working through us and as us. All right. So creating personal systems, everything I just said got a little bit broad, got a little bit specific at some points, but now just practical things, right? Creating our own personal systems is incredibly important, of course, because when we have regularity in our actions and values, then we really are showing up to what we say that we're going to show up to. We're living with intention. When we live with intention, we build self-trust and self-respect, which allows us to keep showing up to the things that we want to show up to show up to things that we're afraid of, befriend fear, walk hand in hand with it, because it's only trying to keep us alive, and say, you know what? I know I acknowledge that you're there, but I'm actually, I'm going to just face this because I trust that I have the capacity to figure out whatever the unknown is. And the more we do that, the more we're taking action, the more that we are able to show up to those situations of the unknown. So one of the personal systems that I think is essential that nobody can go without, and it's a little bit unfortunate that technology has taken over every aspect of our lives to the point that kind of physically writing things down is not as practiced. I feel like even I have a system on my phone where, because I take notes on a calendar app that I have called Daily Note. Highly recommend it. They don't sponsor me, but please check out Daily Note, because then you can track your progress and things. But on top of that, I think writing things down, technology has evolved faster than our brains have and than we have, right? So physically writing something down has been scientifically proven to slow down the mind, ease and ease your stress levels, and also it organizes the thoughts, unlike writing or typing on a phone or a tablet does. So writing down anything from that's self-reflective, that is intentional about what you want, goals. Making lists is great, but also giving them life, giving them specificity is important. So one thing about how I operate, and I've learned about myself as a creative, is, I was diagnosed with ADD super young. So I either am super distracted or I hyperfixate on something, and I miss everything else going on because I have to focus so intensely in order to stay there. So something that really works for me is Post-it notes, having Post-it notes everywhere. I love color. I love that I get to write in them. I love that I get to put them wherever I want as reminders. They're all over my computer, in the areas that are not, the typing, oh my gosh, the keyboard, sorry. 2 languages. Sometimes I'm translating in my head. I'm from Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico. So and so these Post-it notes help. And when I am being intentional about goals, that's where I write a very specific outline. And I'll go over that later, because I have an incredible story that resonates with where I am today and all the things that I've gotten to do that were maybe like half visions before, and then were realized in ways that I couldn't have imagined, and in much bigger ways. And that's the co-creation that I'm so thankful for, to God and to just the world, that how we operate, how we're here. So show up when you say you will, for yourself and others. If you make an appointment with someone for coffee, and something comes up and you have to reschedule, make sure the priorities are in line. So I make sure that I have lists of priorities to remind myself, hey, just because this guy that I'm really into suggested that we hang out this night, but I already had plans with my 2 girlfriends that I haven't seen in a while. I'm not gonna reschedule with my girlfriends because I'm very excited about this person, right? It's just staying consistent and being known as someone that shows up. If I say that I have a lot of friends that are on Broadway and on live shows that are entertainers, and if supporting people and supporting friends is just equally as important to me, and in terms of being intentional with friendships as well. And so showing up to their shows when I say I will, I can't tell you the amount of times people will say, oh my gosh, you actually came. And the fact, it makes me feel kind of sad that that's an instinct that people draw upon, but it also makes me feel so good that I say, okay, I actually am known for living the way out what I believe, and I'm known for showing up when I say that I will. I'm known for showing up. So yes, so going back to the journal, I think it's a lot easier to do that in terms of maintaining priorities, in terms of showing up for yourself and others, when you have structured mindset, right? So when you journal in the morning, just to output, to get things down on paper, they say that nighttime is a great time for input because we can learn, we can absorb, and then go to sleep and process those thoughts. And the morning is a great time for output. It's a great time to then fully charge, put our heart, our minds, and spirit into active mode. And so I love that terminology because it's kind of technological, input, output as well. So output in the mornings, journaling, saying, what do I want out of this day? Or focusing on gratitude if you don't know what to write, making sure that we're just automatically going to a place of gratitude for what this day has for us, but also for what we've experienced, who we are, that we're alive, that we're healthy. If we're not healthy, for the fact that we will be, or that we're striving to be, for the fact that we have people around us, whatever moves you the most in that present moment. Gratitude opens up the floodgates of the heart. I really believe that gratitude opens up a vulnerability with which we want to express ourselves in everyday life, to be that authentic, full self. Brene Brown has a great TED talk on vulnerability. So if you look at vulnerability, Brene Brown, amazing talk. So going along with personal systems, why are you unique? Why are you original, right? I added these pictures because I guess in the US, being from Mexico and having a Mexican mom and an American dad, I have a lot of cultural crossover. And that's led to a lot of great opportunities work-wise as well, because when I travel with the show, I am a lot of the times the translator. Speaking 2 languages fluently makes it so that speaking other languages can also be a little bit easier, or it facilitates the process of learning. So I know, okay, that there's a skill set that I can really focus on and draw upon when I go into any situation. And I train people, I coach actors for auditions. I have clients on Nickelodeon, I have clients on UCSI and different TV shows and films. And one thing that we really go over often before even an audition, before we approach the lines, before we approach the material and getting into it, is just having a conversation of, okay, well, what am I bringing to the table today? It's not about what they're looking for, because it's about what I'm bringing for this role. And if this role isn't for me, and if what I bring to it isn't for me, then it never was. So this is just a space to create. And it takes the pressure completely off. It puts the power in your hands and what you can control. I would say the same thing, because coaching for acting and auditions is, of course, the same as coaching for job interviews and in interpersonal connection relationships. I do believe that going on a first date, for example, it's like a job interview sometimes, if you're being intentional about really meeting someone that is congruent with your lifestyle and your goals and heart. So when we are very aware of our gifting and our skill sets, we approach those situations from a place of power. It's not about being better than anyone or elevating the ego ever, because we're naturally humbled by the fact that we're part of such a vast universe and that we can't do everything at once. And that's hence the collaborative spirit, hence the teamwork that it requires to get anything done, any project, any creative endeavor. Even if you're an artist or a writer, like a novelist is a little bit more of a lonely profession, but even then, you're going about your life and you're seeing scenarios that, oh, that's a great dialogue. Maybe I'll draw from that, from strangers, or there's always, we're always influencing each other. So, but being aware of our own gifting and then being aware of the gifting of others and bringing that together is magic. But we have to be aware of what makes you unique. And that's something that's great to write about in the journal that we're discussing. As Deb mentioned, I taught high school in my early 20s. When I got my BFA in musical theater, I really wanted to direct, and I got this opportunity to teach at a private high school. And of course, I'd never taught teenagers before. I felt kind of close in age. It felt a little strange, but the opportunity kept presenting itself through people. They're like, there's this job. And I said, yeah, but I'm not a high school teacher. I wouldn't know where to begin. And it was just really funny because it came to a point where I realized I was so scared of the idea that I had to do it. I had to use fear as a compass, because whatever I had to offer, other people were seeing that gift in me of raising people up, or of acknowledging people's gifts and creating personal systems that were working in terms of a career and structuring where I wanted to go with it. And so I said, okay, I'll just go to the board meeting. I'm just going to present a lesson plan. And I said, I don't know the first thing about writing lessons plans, but I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to write a lesson plan. I'm just going to give it 20 minutes. And if I don't, if nothing comes out, then I'll come again at it tomorrow and we'll see. And I gave myself grace in that way. And I sat down and I spent 3 hours straight, it came to me from beginning to end, that lesson plan. And I was shocked. Like I think half of it was really just the study and life experience that I'd had, that I tapped into, that I realized, oh, I actually do know some things. Because I go about life just thinking I don't know anything. It's and pretty much everything. But then it reminds me that life constantly reminds me, oh yeah, no, like once the situation presents itself, I know how to handle it because of this and this and this. And it's great because going through and saying, the more you learn, the less you know. It's a real thing. I've gone to, at this point, I traveled to 20 different countries in 2 years. And it was a lot of different information and cultural. And the more I saw, the more I realized I don't know so much. And it's a beautiful place to be because it's being like a child again. It's being like a kid that's just absorbing what's in the world around you. Yes, anding, and then and continuing to build upon that. But experience gives you the ability to build boundaries and say no when you need to. It gives you the experience to discern a good, healthy action to take and a bad one that's going to reap bad consequences. It gives you the discernment to test which people are the ones to keep in your core circle because you admire them, because they make you better, because they have some skill set that you aspire to, whatever it is. Never hang out with people that are going to send you into self-doubt or into any, your closest circle is so impactful of who you are. You are the 5 closest people to you. That's the saying, right? And so going back to teaching, I went into that experience thinking, I don't know that much, but I'm going to go after it. And they loved the lesson plan. I ended up doing it. And I ended up approaching it just in the way that I would have wanted to be taught. And because the kids were teaching me so much, I crafted it uniquely to each of my students, finding their own journey into acting. You can't teach acting because it's such a personalized thing, but you can teach systems to make you present. You can teach improvisation and how to be comfortable with saying yes to any situation and just trusting your own creativity within it. And that connection for the kids was what I most wanted. And I wanted them to take control and be empowered in that sense. I forgot the space bar doesn't work when I try to switch it that way. So here we go. So all that being said, here's a very specific system that worked for me in visualization and crafting what I believed was not just intended for me, but crafting the dream life that I had, while also being open to what was in store for me. And what I mean by that is, I mentioned my Post-it notes, and I have a picture of one here. Can you read that okay? I'm not sure of the side.
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
Okay, good. So this year I booked my first ever series regular in a dynamic and powerful role that I love, in a story that aligns with my values and love for adventure, travel, and human exploration. I wrote that in April of 2021. That's the most recent Post-it note I did, because since then I've been on the TV show that literally is all of those things. But I can't tell you how much I couldn't have imagined what I do now when I wrote that Post-it note. And so when I began this system, it was COVID hit. Obviously, everything shut down. It was a very scary time for the entertainment industry because there was no work anywhere. But I, being safe at the same time, saw it as an opportunity to just look at everything that I had before me, that I had created, done, and the things that I was putting off in the back burner for years. I was very lucky to start working at a super young age, and having found what I was passionate about, which was acting and being on stage and telling stories, or being part of a story. I'm an introverted extrovert, so I actually don't really like attention being on me, but I love being a character, part of a story that's moving, having someone else's experience made better, or made people think or walk away feeling improved in some way from the theater or from the movies. And that motivated me so much, because I was part of something greater in that sense. And so I found that at a very early age. And I realized something that kept working was I was being very specific with what I wanted, but not how. So the what was super detailed, but the how was up to God. It was up to what was right before me to guide me, and for me to be aware of the doors and the windows sometimes that were opening. And I realized I had to be very specific, but there's something in the act of writing it down that concretes it. There's something that people who are trying to solidify something, like in business, of course, there's something to signing the contract, to actually physically signing it, that makes it, of course, official, right? That makes it, an example of this is in timeshares. If you've ever been to a timeshares meeting, sometimes I've been to one because I was so curious as to the tactics that they use to draw you in. And nothing against timeshares, by the way. Some people really love them. Some people really have a bad experience, but not advocating for them. But one of the things that they did was they wrote out a dream, almost like a dream contract. They said, what are the places you want to visit? And yes, we have 20 places there. Okay, I want you to sign this. And you're not signing a contract with them, or you're not signing a lease, nothing like that. You're just signing for your dreams. But it's a psychological way to draw people in, to make you feel like you're now, they've spent all this time with you. And it was just so interesting to me that was one of the things that they used, is signing your name to a vision. And you don't need someone else to, of course, do that for you. In fact, you should constantly be doing it every day and rechecking in with yourself. And sometimes what used to be your passion isn't anymore. Now that I host this travel docuseries and I do documentaries, I'm so passionate about telling other people's stories and traveling, that I don't know if acting is as big of a deal as it was when I was younger. But because I was an actor, and put myself in so many different life perspectives and shoes, I can go to different countries and feel totally immersed and feel connected to the culture and the community. I also studied comparative religion at Harvard for 2 years. So I do have an area of study in that as well. But in terms of the practice of it, I fell in love with human beings when I was a kid. And so that's why I became an actor. I wanted to have all the experiences in the world. Turns out you can't, but you can have all the experiences you're meant to have. And that's, I think, truly living. So when we're really specific about the what and not the how, is how things happen. And there's a couple of ways that this manifests. So this is the show. This is one of the posters. This is in Kenya, and then working with the my goodness, the tribe in Suriname that we worked with to build a pineapple factory. That's the little girl and I, and in a rainstorm. And the Navajo in Navajo Nation. I had an image of working with communities and tribes when COVID hit. I thought, okay, I'm going to be safe, but I'm going to go to Mexico and reconnect with my culture. There's no work right now. I'm going to go and be present in the place that I grew up as a kid, but haven't really been back to live and see what that's like. So I moved back, and I was working in sustainable energy and agriculture to help bring communities that were still living without electricity and such that, as well as through wind power and bio energy. And that was really fascinating, totally 180 from anything I'd ever done before. But I knew how to conduct myself in a business meeting from the thousands of auditions that I had done. And I knew how to connect people. I knew that one person was trying to get something done and another person was working on something else. And those two things really went well together. So that's how I got started in that track. I was working with communities, and suddenly I said, I want to physically be working on something with them. And this kept coming back to me, and it kept coming back to me. And I thought, how wild, because I don't know what that looks like. So going back to this Post-it note, the year before I'd gone to Mexico, I went to Mexico in 2021. 2020, the pandemic, I was quarantining at home for many, many months. And then I realized I could quarantine in my car as I drove cross country. So I drove from Los Angeles to Boston, quarantined in my car. And I said, this is going to be just a journey of learning to be completely alone and realizing what I want. Because if there's a pandemic and the world really is coming to an end, like all of social media is calling out right now, then I want to reframe my mind. I'm not going to accept fear-based mentality. I'm not going to. And so I got in my car, I hopped in, and I was journaling, not while driving, of course, but as I was stopping in each place that I thought, this is beautiful, connecting with nature. And I got to Boston in a place of such, I was also writing down things from my past that I felt like were still holding on, that I felt ashamed of, or that I felt sadness about. And I just was writing it out and getting it out and saying, I forgive, I love, and I intend for this life, right? And I kept just this life as in terms of who I want to be. Who do I want to be? Visualizing that person, stepping into those shoes immediately as soon as it came to me. When I got to Boston, I was in a state of such joy, even though nothing around me was pointing towards any direction. I had no concept of what I was going to do for work. It was a very, what should have been a very stressful or anxiety-driven time. But it wasn't at all, because of doing that work. I was just in the state of overflow. I had so much joy, and it wasn't throwing caution to the wind. It was just this acceptance, this radical acceptance. I mentioned I was going to talk about acceptance at the beginning of this talk, and that's what it is. It's what is. Here's this is the world right now. There's a pandemic. People are scared. People are really ill. My parents could get very ill. There's all of these things, but you go, okay, none of that is real right now. Right now, what's real? What's real is that I'm here, I'm present, I'm breathing this air, I'm in this beautiful part of Duxbury in Boston, or in Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. And that's where I'm going to be. So I'm going to dream from this place of joy. And I started being really specific, and I wrote 3 Post-it notes. I had my Post-it notes with me, and I drew 3 out, and I went, okay, 3 visions for before the end of the year. I think COVID hit in May. Was it March or May? One or the other. But I had 3 very specific visions that I wanted. The first was, before the end of the year, I will book a lead role in a feature film that allows me to do a lot of research, that is physically challenging in some way. And that is a lot of research, physically challenging, and allows me to have a lot of fun with it. That was it. That was the Post-it note. The second one was before the end of the year, very specific timeline. I wanted, before the end of the year, I will book a recurring or guest star in a TV series that is just fun and allows me to travel. That's not this one, by the way. That's the one I wrote the year before. And then the third one was before the end of the year, I will sign with an agency that really believes in me and is boutique and small so that they can really focus on building my brand. These were all things that were so unlikely to happen because of the time period we were in, and everything everyone was saying online was counterintuitive. They were saying there won't be any acting work for 2 years. There won't be, the things can't ever go back to normal again because of this and this and this reason, right? So this was radical, radical self-belief, radical visualization, really. But the secret, not that it's really a secret. I think it's very apparent in a lot of writings now that I see it that way from my experience, was that I was writing from a place of joy. I wasn't writing from a place of need, a place of, and sometimes we need things, like health and things. I mean, but it's the energy behind it. It's I need this to be happy in order to find joy. I need this to happen in order to accomplish X, Y, and Z. I need to have a degree in this in order to be able to teach at a prestigious conservatory. I need, it's that thinking that sometimes from the systematic way the world operates sometimes gets drilled into us. But we have to unlearn some things in order to then teach the world new paths and new things, right? So this exercise was so powerful because I didn't do it thinking, I'm going to make this happen. It's all me. No, I did it because I was dreaming. It felt so much fun. It was almost like it was a prayer in a way. I was being specific on what I wanted and leaving the how up to God. 2 weeks later, I get a call from a producer I'd worked with as a line producer on a movie. I wasn't acting in the movie. I was a line producer and I was first AD, which is first assistant director, took care of like call sheets and getting a set, running a set basically. So he didn't know I was an actor, but for some reason, 2 weeks later, he calls me and says, I found your acting reel online and I'm developing the first approved feature film in LA by the union, SAG, that I'm a part of. I'm developing the first because we are shooting just in one location. It was this mansion, the Frank Sinatra house and in the hills. And we're going to quarantine there for the whole film shoot. So no one's leaving or coming in and out. They had all of these regulations. And he said, and there's a role that I think would be really interesting for you, but I will warn you, it would be a little bit physically challenging. And I need you to do a lot of research. He quoted my Post-it note to me. And it was a feature film. It was a leading role. And then he said the words that I'd written down. I still tear up thinking about it because it was just so it was that synchronicity that you just think, wow, like, thank you, God. Like the spirit is what. So anyway, I auditioned. I send in a tape, which you do when you audition for film. Sometimes you just tape it yourself at home. And he said, yeah, we're casting you. Here's a script, get out to LA. I said, great. I accepted the role. And then 3 days later, I get a call from Televisa in Mexico. I'd gone a couple of years before to give my resume and headshots out, never heard anything. And went, okay, cool. Like, that's fine. I'm going to be in California anyway. And then, so I get a call from Televisa 3 days later after I'd accepted this movie. And they go, the role has finally come up for you. And this is still, I mean, I just arrived in Boston. This is like 4 months after COVID first hit. It was insane. I mean, I can't describe to you in that moment how wild this was. But the role has definitely has finally come up for you. It's this role. You'll get to wear a lot of outfits, but we need you to come to Mexico. So there was the travel, and I read the script, and it was such a fun role. Here was the catch. It was exactly the same dates as the movie. So I went, okay, like, this is just confirmation that that writing from a place of joy and asking from a place of full commitment to that faith of internally being whole first before anything else needs to happen is a good road to be on. That this is the way, this is the structure, this is the system, the personal system of visualization. So I told them, I'm sorry, I can't, I can't do those dates. I've accepted this movie. And they said, oh, okay, I'm sorry to hear that. And we hung up. It was great. I said, please consider me again. And then I talked to God and I said, wow, thank you so much for showing me what's possible, for showing me that you are above anything that I could possibly have imagined was a limitation. The next day I get a call. We've moved the dates. That does not happen in my industry at all. Like, there's so many actors out there, they can cast anybody. I was so humbled by it. And I'm still humbled by it, thinking about it, because yeah, it's very, very rare for anything like that to happen, let alone during the times when there was very little work. So Televisa was still shooting TV shows. This film was being shot in LA because it was meeting all of the requirements for the new COVID and the new healthcare situation. And a month later, I was out shooting the movie, and I went straight on the last day of the film. I flew to Mexico, started shooting the TV show the next day. Those were my first 2 Post-it notes that I wrote in this way, in this systematic way. I gave a time frame. I gave a specific, very specific vision of what it was that would be great, that I wanted, that I saw for myself. And then it was a list. It was 3 things. Three is a good number, I feel like. So, you know, when I said I want a role that's physically challenging, that causes me to do a lot of research and allows me to have a lot of fun with people that I know, that was just 3 nice specific things. If I go really, really long and really specific, I start going into the how I want things to happen, and suddenly I'm not collaborating with how life works. And that's being in conjunction with nature, right? We talked about the Stoics being really in tune with how nature works. And I think being in tune with the algorithm of life and how it operates is really important when we're doing this process of systematic visualization. Post-it notes are great too, because you can take them with you everywhere, put them on little books and things so you don't forget. And looking at them is great. So the last Post-it note that I'd done took its time to fulfill. But before the end of the year, which was what I stipulated at the very beginning of it, an agent that I'd worked with years ago when I was a kid in commercials, called me and said, I'm starting the theatrical division at a boutique agency. I remembered you. You came to mind. You've been on my mind to want to represent. And lo and behold, I had the agent that was getting on calls pitching me to projects that I had wanted for so long. So all 3 came true before the end of that year. And so I thought, wow, I felt so almost freaked out by it a little bit that I didn't write one until April of the next year. And even then I wrote just 1 because it was just, I didn't want to be greedy. I thought, oh my goodness, you know, this is, but I realized being specific and yeah, not writing a million things that you want, but being specific about what you want. 3 is a great number. 3 intentions, 3 visions, specificity always results in that creative collaboration of crafting a life that seems improbable. And the more improbable it is, the more the satisfaction to like dare to be wild about the visions, dare to be present and active in your steps every day to get there, right? Because that's what's so fun. I mean, again, momentum morty, if you're reflecting on your mortality every day, we realize we don't have all the time in the world. This moment of connection with a boyfriend, with my sister, with my mom could be so significant regardless of what happens tomorrow. So I'm just going to be here for it. I'm not going to be on my phone. I'm not going to be living passively. Intentionality is the way that we get to visualize everything that we want, because we're showing up to something. We might not have the qualifications that we think we should have or anything, but the one qualification you do need is showing up and being intentional day by day. So then when I go, huh?
Oh, sorry, Andy. I was just going to say that's showing up. That's part of this whole stand up, speak up, and show up. Without interrupting you, I thought we were come to a little bit of a close around the stand up, speak up, and show up. And but I see you have another slide, so maybe we can.
Oh no, this is just the breakdown of everything I just talked about. I am
Okay.
coming close. Sorry, everybody. Thank you, by the way, for putting up with me.
No, it's great. It's great. It was just a great lead off a little bit. So
yeah, it's just a breakdown of things I already talked about. So achieving that state of acceptance of what is, writing down everything that you need to achieve that sense of peace. Prayer, if that's something that you do, that you connect with, that is a personal relationship for you, and that joy that comes before anything that you do, being there and taking place, relying on the spirit coming before you too, knowing that it's a living spirit, right? Choosing our community carefully, breathing, intentional time with ourselves, embracing the mess, all of that. Important nature and intention. I had a little video of this man that I met in Suriname that makes potions for healing, but not potions in terms of witchcraft. He makes them because he's the healer of the community, and he's talking about how he can't make this concoction to heal people if his heart is not in the right place, and so the intentionality and the energy of that has to be right. And so my heart's not in the right place, the potion won't work.
If your heart is not in the right place, it won't work. Your heart must be in the right place.
So I loved just that, because he lived such a difficult life. He lost his daughter and wife they drowned in a river trying to cross it. And he went into this state of deep depression, and then woke up one day, having gone addicted to certain substances, woke up one day and realized, what am I doing with the life I was given? I survived these two people that I loved. What am I going to do? So he devoted his life to service. He started learning about all the plants around and became the healer of the community. And that resilience, that heart, he had such a beautiful heart, and you feel it immediately, right? It takes one to know one. And when you go into a room and you see someone just shining a light, that means that light is in you as well. And that's how you find your tribe. That's how you create, your environment and keep the right people around you. So that's it. I had some more slides, but they were basically breaking down everything that we do. So improvisation being the key word of my presentation was just that, is that you can show up not knowing what's going to happen next, but saying yes and to any situation, good or bad, and adding upon it. It just gives you strength. It gives you power, and keeps you focused on what you can control. So thank you so much, guys.
Yay! All right, let's show Andi some love. That was incredible. What an amazing man.
Oh, wait, I found my love glasses.
All right. Oh my gosh, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much.